Autistic people of Reddit, what do you wish more people knew about autism? It's kind of hard depending where an autistic person is on the spectrum. So for example, if you encounter an autistic person that has problems with socializing, don't consider them as this antisocial person who wants to be left alone. Because they probably might want people to hang out with, they're just too shy when it comes to asking, or at least, that's what happened to me. Same here. I feel like I'm being creepy when I talk to people. Even commenting this is very awkward for me to do. How did you all find out you have autism? A lot of these random phobias and quirks being described here are things I experience, and I'm kind of a loner, but also can on the flip side be outgoing, talkative and funny when in certain scenarios when I'm with friends and comfortable, and I feel like I'm really good at reading people's emotions and minor indicators in conversations. But I also have generalized anxiety disorder, very minor OCD, and am introverted. I mean, I heard my mom talking about it when I was young, and she's a behavioral therapist and used to work in a special needs school, so she knows about developmental disorders like autism. And then when I was about 14 I saw a little checklist online about symptoms, and I matched nearly all of them. The way you say you read people's emotions makes me inclined to err on the side of caution. From my experience, most autistic people have to actively learn how to read people, and even then it's like a tourist speaking broken English. To be fair though, a lot of women I know that are undiagnosed but definitely have it in every other area of their life seem hyper-focus on social interactions and emotional cues for their own particular train spotting. So you end up with people that are super aware of it, even if they might be terrible at incorporating that into their communication. True. From my experience of my family and a female friend of mine with autism, I haven't seen that in them, but obviously it's a spectrum and it affects people in different ways. I'm just sharing my experiences, and it's good to hear wider knowledge on the subject, for their own particular train spotting. What? A common autistic trait is a hyper-focused obsession with a specific subject. This is called train spotting because many autistic kids are obsessed with trains and will obtain an encyclopedic knowledge of train minutiae. However, the chosen obsession doesn't have to be trains. In theory, it could be anything: digits of pi, reptile facts, historical dates, stamps, even the fine details of social interaction and human psychology. What separates train spotting from a more neurotypical obsession is a tendency for the obsession to be more focused on rote memorization than deep understanding. Autistic people tend to have really strong long-term memory, especially when compared to their often lackluster short-term memory. Often people on the spectrum can come across as smarter than they actually are because they can recite so many specific details, masquerading their somewhat superficial understanding of the material. They focus on their obsession to the exclusion of other, more socially acceptable interests. Because autistic people are less sensitive to social pressure, their obsessions are often weird and esoteric. For example, while more neurotypical people might listen to mostly hip-hop and rock music, an autistic person might listen exclusively to Indian classical music. Autistic people often redirect conversations to their specific obsession, especially when they are stressed or are at a loss of words. This can exasperate their conversation partner as they have to endure long, pedantic monologues about how the TX3 was actually a V-series model until the 2 series diverged due to a lawsuit against blah blah blah. To make matters worse, because an autistic person has trouble reading social cues, they won't pick up on attempted redirections and changes of topic. While there are a lot of downsides to train spotting, it can have its upsides as well. People on the spectrum often have great success in technical STEM fields where their attention to detail and systematized way of thinking gives them an advantage, if channeled correctly. Indeed, many great scientists, both now and in the past, are suspected to have a form of high-functioning Asperger's. Dude, your fourth point got me. I also have the problem where I like to repeat the same story over and over again, even if the person I am telling has heard it 1,000 times. On an unrelated note, last night I was playing canasta with my GF and her family, and I picked up the pile, which was huge, and because in order to play cards they must be in order, everyone had to wait for me to organize them into my hand before I played. And if that story seems completely off topic, IDC, because for your enjoyment I resisted the urge to delete it, you're welcome. Laughing at me when I'm expressing happiness instantly makes me unhappy. I knew a guy who went to my college for a couple of years with Asperger's, who really liked rocks. He would occasionally approach me and start talking about them, and I'd listen sometimes when I didn't need to go somewhere, because I could see just how happy they made him. But I also witnessed many times where people were unnecessarily mean to him. There were some people that thought of him as a novelty and would feign friendship and feed him alcohol, just because they thought it was funny when he was drunk. Looking back, I wish I would have done more to help him out and stop them. I remember one day before he left I went to the gym for a run and all the treadmills were taken, so I went to the indoor track that was hardly used. About 10 minutes into my run, he comes in with his mom and goes into the middle of the track with her. He starts showing her these various sword fighting techniques that he had learned, because apparently he was really into that too. Then he notices me as I'm doing a lap and eagerly waves. I wave back and he motions me to come. So, I took out my earbuds and jogged over. He introduced me to his mom as his friend. I could tell it made her really happy that he had a friend, and he was really happy too. I had only briefly talked to him a few times, but I did my best to be as friendly as I could be. After a few minutes, I excused myself, saying that I had to get going, so I left. That was pretty much the last time I saw him, because he left school shortly after. He was a really nice guy that most people just misunderstood, and looking back I wish I had tried to get to know him better. Sorry for rambling, what you said just reminded me of him and his love of rocks. That's nice of you, dude, I'm sure that meant a lot to him. Too bad that so many people find it hard to treat anyone who is a bit socially different with normal friendliness. Well, that's a lovely story. I know I get obsessive over so many things. I'll talk to folk almost unendingly, and then suddenly a wave of normality will wash over me and I'll remember that other folk can't talk and listen for hours on end. Then I feel awkward. So that was kind of you to take the opportunity to be a bro. I mean, I'm NT, but get me started on a science thing I'm into and you're lucky if I stop. Passion is cool, and you shouldn't get bummed about someone's disinterest because they're the bummer. My kid has Asperger's. The difference is that you can tell if someone is responding to your discussion. If they are mildly interested, excited, wish it would end, etc. My kid will talk about Godzilla, kaijus to anyone and everyone. Who would win between King Caesar and Biolante? Here's who I think would win. Do you think Godzilla 1964 is better or Mothra? If you don't know who they are and aren't very interested in learning, it's impossible to carry a conversation. I try to learn so he has someone to talk to about those topics. I can probably name more Thomas the Tank Engines, Pokémon, sharks, dinosaurs, and kaiju than any other 39-year-old on the planet. I don't know how old your kid is, and the internet is a crazy place, but you might want to introduce him to who would win, or at least take him on some guided tours through it. It's a subreddit of people who are hilariously passionate about providing the most concrete reasons why fictional characters would beat each other in a fight. Everything from Pokémon to Godzilla. As with all things internet, YMMV with regard to finding stuff he cares about, but I assure you there are plenty of us geeks who very much care which version of Godzilla is the strongest and can somehow do the math to prove it. He may be way too young for it, but one of the best things about the internet is that no matter how strange or unique you think your passion is, there are probably hundreds if not thousands of other people who feel the same way and would love to talk about it. I wish more people understood how terrified I, and possibly others, are that it will bar us from jobs, opportunities and relationships, a normal life, because other people see us as lesser, as difficult, not worth managing, or as broken. I feel like things are often harder just because people view me that way. It perpetuates itself. I worry when I tell people I'm autistic on a date that they're gonna bounce because they then think they're doing the equivalent to dating a toddler. We recently realized that my husband is on the spectrum somewhere. We have not gotten an office diagnosis, but instead of making me feel like he was less, it was like shining a light on all his issues, and suddenly everything clicked into place. I love him and understand where he is coming from so much better now. I wish we had realized before now. We have 2 kids and he is the most amazing dad. Having autism doesn't make you childlike, it makes you different. If everyone was the same, the world would be boring. I hope you find someone who loves you for all of who you are. Edit. Wow. This blew up. I will try to respond to everyone as soon as possible. It is quite late here and I am nodding off. I'm pretty sure one of my coworkers is on the spectrum, and he brings skills to the team that none of the rest of us can. The way his mind works differently makes him a huge asset. We're 99.9% sure my little brother has autism, but neither he nor my parents ever cared enough to get him officially diagnosed. He's a very analytical, clever kid with such a sharp, dark sense humor. No one else can make me wheeze laugh as much as he used to.